I can get away without that, I think.
Yeah, no spoilers. Just like I just wanted to find out what you were feeling about this film, because I know how I felt about it, obviously, but I have kind of a history of watching all the Spider-Man films, and so
Yeah.
even if I had watched this film and was like, I didn't like it or I did like it or whatever, I have a history of Spider-Man. I don't know if you do, and so I was curious to hear what you thought of it, what your history with Spider-Man is, etc.
I actually have a pretty extensive history of Spider-Man. I would
Oh,
say
great. Okay,
Spider-Man
good.
has for a long time been my favorite superhero.
Oh wow,
Um,
I didn't know that about you.
I mean, I don't talk about it that much, mostly because like the second, I don't know, there's people who are far bigger fans than I am. I'm discovering that about nearly everything.
Well, of
I was like,
course, yeah.
here are the things I like. Like 8-year-old me, I was like, I like Spider-Man and Star Trek and Star Wars, and I probably like those more than anyone else. And then I like turned 18 and found out that wasn't the case at all. So it's just something that's kind of it's always been there. But I had a Spider-Man poster on my bedroom door. Um, I guess it kind of started with like the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. But I got from that into reading comics and stuff. So I read Amazing Spider-Man and Spectacular Spider-Man through most of the 90s and into the early 2000s, which there were some really good runs in there. Mostly when J. Michael Straczynski took over the writing. So those are honestly some of my favorite comic arcs. Not to say that I'm a comic book scholar either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always really liked Spider-Man. I've liked most of the movies, but they've been kind of all over the map.
They really have. Yeah, like by a lot. Yeah.
Which the source material's been everywhere too, so it's not uncommon.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a fan. Uh, yeah.
Okay.
I will say the things that appeal to me about Spider-Man in general haven't really been present in the Tom Holland run of Spider-Man movies.
What appeals to you about Spider-Man?
He's like he's it's friendly neighborhood kind of thing. The fact that is just a dude in a cloth suit really appealed to me. And it makes him more vulnerable, more human, I guess. The fact that Spider-Man stories are equal parts human drama in addition to superhero drama, and the fact that the two interchange. Like, you can have something like Superman who barely has a human life. Like he just has a job out of like a human curiosity, basically. Somebody's going to take offense to that, but Bruce Wayne is a billionaire. He doesn't have to work, but he does, and he's also mega smart for some reason.
All superheroes are smart.
Yeah, that's true. That's always a thing, right? There's some
they
universal traits that make them super appealing, but Spider-Man had to work shitty jobs. He had to go to school.
Yeah, he was a teenager.
And he had to try to
15.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's something about that was always a little more approachable to me. The challenge of trying to have a normal life while also trying to be super, just basically trying to maintain a certain code of living and a code of ethics in a world that makes that very challenging, or a world that forces you to, and this is kind of getting into some of the themes of the film, a world that forces you sometimes to either sacrifice yourself or your time to do the right thing, or to make very uncomfortable decisions about when you're allowed to do something for yourself.
That was exactly what No Way Home addressed right off the top, which is so that's because I mean I know it sounds like you skewed more toward the Tobey Maguires or the Andrew Garfields because they didn't really have any other cinematic universe to pull from, and so they had to establish their own Spider-Man. But I could be wrong.
I mean the Tobey Maguire ones, I feel like that's just Sam Raimi, really. It's Sam Raimi filmmaking.
It totally is. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, Spider-Man 1 is a very Raimi film. 3 is like, in a bad way, a very Raimi film. 2 is like a legitimately good film.
Yeah,
2 was the only, for a long time, it was my favorite superhero movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Garfield ones, for better or worse, were a lot more comic book accurate. I appreciated that about Amazing Spider-Man 2. It really did feel like a comic book Spider-Man story. That doesn't make it a good story, but it certainly made it feel a lot more accurate than some of the other takes. But then, you get into the MCU and Spider-Man's got a nano suit, and they try to inject some of that real life stuff in there. But mostly, I thought it was an interesting adaptation of like Spider-Man themes and Spider-Man stories to the MCU and to like kind of a younger, newer audience that had different things to worry about. So I thought that was neat too.
Yeah, and I think since we're jumping, I mean, this is the third of the trilogy of the Tom Holland Spider-Mans, and No Way Home addresses the stuff that you were liking about Spider-Man, which is like him trying to live a normal life, him trying to have a girlfriend, trying to go to college, et cetera, et cetera. And so it uses the MCU to, I guess, to solve that problem for him rather than him addressing it on his own. And I look, I'll come out and say it about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I was just reading something from Simon Kinberg, who produced the X-Men films, and he was like, Kevin Feige, basically, he said Kevin Feige is the maybe the best producer of all time. Like he might be the greatest movie producer that has ever worked, and he's not wrong, especially from a commercial standpoint. And I think the same thing about Feige, but it's not even about commercial. It's more about like the movies he's making, is they all have a pretty good standard of quality. They're not like, they're not, obviously they're not going to fucking break any boundaries, or they're not going to be they're not going to be the greatest films in the world, but they're certainly better than a lot of films I watch. So I'm happy to dive into the MCU, especially for a movie that I feel is going to give me a lot of other characters. Like, I love seeing Doctor Strange, and I love seeing Happy Hogan and all those characters in there. So it's exciting for me. And again, without spoiling. So, but I don't know if that's how you feel about it, because I don't know. You kind of bounce in and out of the MCU. You're sort of like, I like it. I kind of don't like it. I don't like it. I like it. I've never really heard you commit to it either way.
I mean, I was enjoying it just for the scale of what was being done. Kind of like you were saying about Feige and his direction. It was really exciting to see, because to my knowledge, it never really been done before. Something like Marvel Cinematic Universe culminated something like Endgame was really something. Just the cinematic scale of it was.
Thanks, Mason Main and K-Bergs.
But much like the cyclical nature of comics, once you wrap up a certain storyline, you kind of have to keep going. So I was kind of used to the cycle of escalation and de-escalation, and I was curious how they were going to try to build it back up again. It doesn't seem like that's really kicked in yet. I guess they're alluding to Galactus with Eternals and stuff like that. But
I think so. Yeah, I don't know though. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess I have yet to be captivated by anything post Endgame, mostly because the pyramids have been built. I don't necessarily need to see the next pyramid get built. So maybe that's a weird way to say it, but I was into it just to see how they executed it. But I don't know that like individual movies would have good moments. I'm trying to think of MCU films that. I mean, there's so many. Jeez.
I mean, like a lot of people point at Thor Ragnarok as one of the best. A lot of people pointed at Black Panther as one of the best as well. And I don't know if you thought that. I thought Thor Ragnarok was amazing.
They were fun rides, but I feel like MCU movies don't really say anything. Not that they have to, but those are the kinds of movies that I like the most.
Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah, Guardian, I guess the message was friendship. Friendship is the ultimate power in the universe or something. I
mean, a lot of people were saying it was like the Star Wars of the MCU, and they established a bunch of characters that you never had seen or heard about, and then you immediately cared about them. I thought so. That's the way I felt about it, but I don't know. So that's how you felt.
They were charming. It was a charming film, but I don't know. I like movies that give me a kind of deep thought to chew on and play with. And a lot of the Marvel movies don't do that because they're not trying to. I'm not trying to say this is a knock against them.
No, yeah.
Or that this is why they don't really occupy a whole lot of space in my mind. It's because they're fun stories that have a very palatable and pleasing sort of message, but the message is ultimately pretty thin and doesn't really hold up to a lot of scrutiny or thought because they're hero stories. So yeah, that's kind of my relationship with them. Is any movie that's as expensive as a lot of the Marvel movies are is always going to be like a good time to watch. I mean, I like expensive movies that are bad, just because. I mean, I like Transformers movies. Not to draw a direct comparison, but that's about where they sit in my mind. Is like, this is a big, dumb, fun ride.
That's a good way to that's a good way to think about it. Yeah.
But once you've been on a roller coaster 8 times, you kind of know the roller coaster.
Yeah, my opinion is that is honestly not at all the way I feel about it. Transformers is absolutely big and dumb. I think you're totally right about that. But the big and dumb starts to really make me bored when I have characters I don't care about. So that's what happens in every Transformers film. Yeah. Is like an hour into it, I'm like, why the fuck do I care about what Shia LaBeouf is doing? Like, and with MCU films, like somebody brought out Winter Soldier, which I think absolutely has something to say. And Winter Soldier, like, really made me care about what happens with Captain America and how he's going to continue to uphold his ideals when he's put into these horrible situations. Same with Civil War. So I love Captain America. So I was always like, there's no way. How is this movie going to continue to, or this MCU going to continue to make him feel and do the same things that he's holding to his same ideals, but then also have to fight his friends.
Yeah, I was. So it's interesting you bring up Civil War, because I think I had high hopes for that movie.
Yeah,
and Winter Soldier as well. I wanted Captain America to like not be right for one time, yeah. And see how he dealt with it. Yeah. Like, I would love in Civil War for him to actually have moments of doubt, or to have moments where he realizes he did something wrong because of his zealotry.
I think he did. I think he does. I actually do. I really think he does go through that. I don't. It's because a lot of people went through that film watching it being like, no, Iron Man's correct here. And Captain
but he
America,
wasn't. Like, the movie basically said he wasn't. The movie told you that Captain America's right. Right? Maybe I misinterpreted it.
Well, at the end of it, Civil War, Captain America's basically in exile. So
he's still right, though.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, like, to me, I think, Lawrence, probably you and I have similar morals.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Because I've talked to people at length about Tony and the way he dealt with it, and like, people have good points about what Tony Stark was doing in that film. And even now when I watch Civil War, I'm like, man, like, the shit he's saying is not always wrong. So the filmmakers do definitely seem more sympathetic to Captain America, which makes sense because they made Captain America films before they ever made Civil War. The Russo brothers did. So they've always sort of focused on him. But I don't know. It's just but those are interesting debates to have. But I know what you're saying, Lawrence, because I felt the same way. I just don't know if I know that everybody didn't feel that same way. So
I guess in context too, Spider-Man's role in like the comic book Civil War was gnarly and made Iron Man even more of a questionable asshole.
Yeah, because he went and got this kid.
Yeah, he basically made a kid the poster child for, revealing his identity. I think, and again, in No Way Home, that's how they kind of put that plot point in, which was really smart, I thought. But I mean, that was the actual implementation of it, instead of just Captain America and Iron Man having one really cool fight at the end of a movie and that sort of settling the issue. I guess in canon it didn't. Captain America was a war criminal until a Purple Man showed up.
Until Purple Man, right? Then they needed him.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Which, in a way, like, is very America, or at least how we think we like to see ourselves. Is we're always right and nobody wants us around until something bad happens. Then we got to swoop in and be blonde and beat everybody up.
That's funny. That's funny.
But yeah, I guess I was waiting / hoping, especially, in context of, well, maybe where the United States was, to actually have the movie sort of, I don't know, have Captain America actually be tested a little bit more than just being like ironclad dedicated to his morals and then being right. Is kind of what my takeaway was. But maybe
I know what you're saying.
Maybe I judged it a little too surface level.
I just didn't. I was like, because I was like you, Lawrence. I was like, man, clearly Captain America's right. And then like I had 20 people jump down my throat with a bunch of different points that I was like, those are valid. Like, I didn't think about that. So it was an interesting discussion about Civil War. Regardless, I don't think. I don't know that No Way Home had any of those moral quandaries in them
No, well, it did. Sort of.
Yeah, it was other than like, hey, don't fuck with magic. Like just deal with the things as they come. Don't try and don't. I guess it's not even. Don't have regret. I guess that's the way it feels to me because obviously there's magic involved. So for me, it's like, well, instead, don't regret it, but just deal with those problems as a normal human being would, rather than relying on things that you can't control. I don't know.
Man, I took something else very different and much more troubling from No Way Home. So
good.
Yeah, I'll try to avoid spoilers, but so you're right. The kind of the first act is sort of well, no, I can't get into those details yet. So let me think. Thematically, you're right. It was like, can a hero have it all? Can they have a personal life?
Right.
Can they fight crime? And that is kind of core to most Spider-Man tales, is being caught in between doing hero stuff and doing his personalized stuff. I think in a greater way, it also provides commentary. What I liked is it kind of provides commentary on, the typical hero-villain relationship. The things where I found troubling, well, I'll get into that later.
You can talk about the villains, because I know the other point I think you're going to talk about, which is and correct me if I'm wrong, but him trying to cure the villains rather than kill them.
Yeah. The way that No Way Home addresses death, I kind of get where they're going, and that's that is actually a really interesting chestnut to bite off.
I agree, yeah.
But unlike the themes of the movie, or rather unlike the story of the movie, the themes of the movie did try to have it all. They tried to present this nuanced message that I think sabotaged itself by the actions of its characters.
Okay.
But to go into more of that, I think I'd have to talk about spoilers.
Got it. Yeah, just a few more minutes, and we can, if your chat and my chat are alright with it, we can just dive into it. But I just wanted to make sure that no one clicked on the live notification, jumped in, and was immediately got spoiled. I was worried. Gotcha. I was worried about that. But if you guys want to talk about spoilers, chat, I'm happy to. It looks like I think most people. What about your chat, Lawrence?
I mean, I have spoiler stuff. I kind of warned people that there might be spoilers before we started, and then I have spoilers in my title. So I think most people are
terrific. Okay,
aware that at some point we're going to get spoilery. But if not, here's your spoiler warning.
Yeah,
we're down. I've been ready. Spoil me, daddy. All right,
great. Good. Yeah, because I just put it in my title as well. This is your last warning in my chat. Just make sure. Please click out if you don't want spoilers. This will get super spoilery. All right, Lawrence, hit me with what you were talking about.
Whew. Okay, all right. There's the things that I really, really liked is sort of revisiting past hero tales, and in a 2020 lens on it, basically being like, what?
Me too.
It's not okay for a hero to beat a villain to death,
to kill them.
Maybe there's a better.
Yeah,
maybe there's a better solution. Although there's a bit of, I don't know. Most Sam Raimi Spider-Man, they ended up killing themselves. He just didn't stop it from happening, which is another kind of weird Spider-Man thing. I mean, and honestly, the thing that I liked about all the Raimi Spider-Mans is Spider-Man lost most of the fights he was in, which is also a good Spider-Man thing.
He got beat to hell, and that happened all the time in the comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Spider-Man is he's not strong. He typically has to outthink, or and now I'm remembering it. In Spider-Man 3, he just basically convinced Sandman to go away, which is another issue with No Way Home, is that Sandman's motivations made no sense. But whatever. There's five characters. They can be allowed to be a little sloppy. So I guess my greatest issue with the movie is that they make this whole point about how there's a better solution than death, except the characters that do die, that's okay because they chose to do it. It's not okay if a hero beats a villain, because that's bad. But if a sacrificial person puts themselves in harm's way and dies, that's okay, and we should all celebrate that. That's what kind of really bothered me about the movie, is that it seemed to say that it's the role of it's the role of a hero to self-sacrifice for the world in silence forever. That's kind of where the movie ended. That's the role of Spider-Man. He just gets ground up by the world.
Right.
And he's not allowed to have a girlfriend, and he's not allowed to have friends. He's not allowed to have anyone because that's just who he is and that's his role. And if he did have anyone, it would just hurt them too. So like that, it sets up a good hero tale, but gosh, is that not a good message? And maybe I shouldn't fret about messages because it's just a superhero movie.
Well, Lawrence, I mean, it's interesting. Why do you say it's not a good message?
Because I guess, and I'm glad you asked actually, because I've been thinking about this a lot. I think I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder about that.
Okay.
I think I've acted in that way for a long time, and it's thoroughly unsustainable. In my life, I've done a lot of like what I consider volunteering time or effort on behalf of others. And there's this, like the movie also kind of implies, if you just care enough and throw enough emotion at somebody, that you can change them. And boy, is that not the case either. Yeah. There are people in this world that will just absorb every last ounce of goodness you can give to them and not care. And again, it's a superhero movie, so maybe I'm judging it way too harshly and on the wrong standards. But it did kind of bug me how like and again, for spoilers, sorry, like May is kind of teed up as the sacrifice that makes this Spider-Man understand great power and great responsibility. Why is it okay? Why are we cool that May died on her terms as a sacrifice, but we're not okay with Green Goblin dying? Why is his life more important?
Well, because
he's like sick, I guess.
Because May knew, because May volunteered. Right.
Yeah. And
May
has to do with volition, I guess.
It has to do with volition, exactly.
So what about Electro? Yeah. He was a prick. He was just a prick. He was just a sad prick. That's it. There's nothing else to his character. And that is a lot of Spider-Man villains. It's the difference between people that have power and understand the responsibility and people that have power and don't.
Yeah.
Or the people that had a father figure like Uncle Ben to teach them the difference and people that didn't.
I thought what you're saying, because it makes total sense to me, Lawrence, what you're saying. And it's interesting that you think that way, because for me, the line that has, I've just been through every single Spider-Man film: with great power comes great responsibility. So to me, the responsibility is he has to maintain this secret identity, or else people around him will die. And that goes with Batman. That goes with a lot of different heroes, not just Spider-Man. So I thought that was why he was punished in quotes at the end of the film. And so I hear what you're saying, and that was what I took from it, if that makes sense.
So, but there are characters who have great power and don't have great responsibility. So it's like the people who understand responsibility have to be like 20 times as responsible to make up for the people who aren't. Is that the idea?
Interesting. That's a really interesting question. So my first answer to that is Tony Stark, and Tony Stark's a dick. And he has no responsibility because he's revealed himself to the world, but he's also kind of a selfish prick. And he always was. So yes, and truthfully, at the very end, right, he sacrificed himself, obviously. But I'd say probably most of us would say, well, he's kind of a dick, so he really never had to sacrifice anything. I mean, he gets drunk in Iron Man 2 and fucks up his house with his suits and stuff. So it's like he clearly has no responsibility to that, whereas Spider-Man does, because he doesn't want MJ to die, he doesn't want May to die, et cetera, and he has to. And that's the whole point of the "with great power comes great responsibility" line. Now, that's just what I'm taking from it. I'm not saying that there is a correct interpretation here. So, yeah, I don't know. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But whatever. I mean, again, I'm interested to hear your point of view, because that's why I asked.
I guess I never remember there being a plot point. Like, there are throwaway scenes, sure, but like when Spider-Man doesn't have responsibility, people die. When Iron Man doesn't have responsibility, he gets a scratch on his car. So
yeah, you're right.
You're right. Yeah, the screws are put to Spider-Man a lot more often, because that is kind of core to most of the narratives. I guess that's just what kind of bugged me in the end, is that the movie was a bit sanctimonious in saying that life should be saved. Yeah, but that didn't apply to the good people in the movie.
Here's something weird, and this is just going to stretch out into real life. Is like you were saying, well, Tony never had to suffer any consequences, but Spider-Man always does. That's the way life is.
Yeah,
it's like you see fucking billionaires out there doing whatever they want.
Yeah.
And then, you're at home, banging out an honest living, making sure that you're doing the right thing all the time. It's the, yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And that's kind of what, like, I had a fun time because the cameos were fun. And I thought the final, I don't know, the final fight was interesting because the Statue of Liberty didn't get a scratch on it, because of course it didn't. But
yeah, I know.
And the idea of like the shield falling was interesting because that could mean something.
Yeah.
But yeah, the takeaway is that that the heroes of the world, kind of like Aunt May, really quietly and thanklessly sacrifice themselves.
That's right.
For the good of everyone else, and that's
right.
just how it is. And I'm like, damn, man, that sucks. That's actually a pretty realistic but weirdly downer take, is that this is just how it is.
Yeah. I kind of agree. I not looking at it from that point of view when I was watching the film. I saw it a couple times, but when Lawrence, what you're saying makes a lot of sense. It absolutely is true. And actually, to tack on to your point, I actually thought Marvel, the MCU, was making a commentary on the MCU versus the Spider-Mans from the past, because they were like, look, before the good guys would kill the bad guys, and our society and the MCU has evolved now, and we don't do that anymore. That was what I got from it. Is like the MCU is sort of honestly lauding itself. And being like, look, we want to cure the bad guys rather than actually kill them, because that's what our society has gotten to now. And me personally, I am not necessarily that way. Like, I kept thinking back to Man of Steel, where in Man of Steel, Superman has to fight Zod, and at the very end of the film, he's like sitting there with Zod in a fucking headlock, and Zod won't stop, and he's like shouting and basically crying, and he snaps his neck because he doesn't want to do it, because Superman knows that's like, he doesn't want to do it, but he has to do it because otherwise Zod will not stop. And so for me, when like, if Spider-Man's going to kill a crazy dude like Green Goblin, I mean, yeah, Green Goblin's killed a bunch of people and like caused a lot of chaos, and I think it's great that we're trying to cure him, but he's done a lot of terrible shit, like, I don't know. So
yeah, the notion that like every villain is just someone who needs like a warm hug is, I thought, a little weird.
Yeah,
I think, Bruce, to what you said about kind of showing that times have changed and that our superhero tales are a little more compassionate now. There was that one line, like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man didn't have a whole lot of lines. They kind of tried to make him a kind of elderly, wizened, sort of older Luke Skywalker type character, where he just kind of shows up and is quiet and reserved and whatever. I thought that was fun. Like having a vision of like a late 30s Spider-Man, which shows up in the comics sometimes. I actually like the older Spider-Man quite a bit over the younger Spider-Man. But there was a line that he said where he's like, I'm trying to do better. And I was like, okay. And that way the movie kind of acknowledges that he's admitting that the way he treated things in the past wasn't ideal.
Right.
So I thought that was neat, and that was tonally consistent.
Yeah, but I'm seeing my chat saying, to be fair, Green Goblin had split personality disorder and Zod didn't. Yeah, absolutely, but the Lizard didn't. Yeah, and Electro didn't. Like, to Lawrence's point, they were just dicks.
Yeah, Electro was just a dweeb who got power. He was a downtrodden. He was the Spider-Man archetype. Like, those are the best Spider-Man villains because it is the hero, but reversed. So he was just a nobody who got power and suddenly felt important. But never had, someone die on his hands that he cared about.
Yeah.
So in that way, you have like a really good foil relationship where Spider-Man sees himself in somebody else, tries calling out to them, tries like reaching them to whatever degree they can. But yeah, there's people who just won't listen to reason. I think it's fun, and I left the movie feeling pretty good. But the more I thought about it, the more of a downer it kind of felt like.
Interesting. Well, I mean, it is kind of a downer ending. All of his friends forget about. I mean, honestly, everybody forgets about him. So he's now got to go live in a shitty. I mean, they show it. He walks into a garbage apartment with a terrible bed, and like, it looks like shit.
It ended up being a long-winded origin story, really, for like the Spider-Man that everyone knows. Is, I guess, he didn't have his formative loss, which what it's part of the story, so whatever. But the idea that you have to lose somebody to develop a moral center is a little rough. But you know what? That's core. That's core Spider-Man lore. So whatever. But yeah, he got his cloth suit. He lost his nano suit. He's just a poor college kid, flipping around trying to solve crimes and be the best person he can be. I was like, okay, this I like it. They ended up where most Spider-Man movies begin, which was neat.
Yeah.
Or most Spider-Man stories begin.
No, yeah, and I didn't. I liked that. It was. I kind of don't. I don't. I'm tired of seeing origin films of movies. You know, or origin films we've seen 1,000 times. So it's like,
yeah.
So I thought that was a neat thing. I just really hope that they don't. In the next Spider-Man movie, please do not give me any, or I don't want any origin for the next Spider-Man film. I like. Because I know that they were going to make a Spider-Man 4. They've already talked about making another one with Tom Holland. I don't know if they will, but that's what they've talked about.
Well, it made a ton of money, right? It's like the biggest, biggest movie since pandemic.
And it made like $1 billion in 2 weekends or something. And I mean, with good reason. This to me was a Civil War style epic. They had put together a bunch of people. A bunch of stars that we all knew and loved in Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe. Like, there's a bunch of really amazing actors and characters that we have loved over the course of 20 years. Mm-hmm. So I thought they deserved that. I really did. And I thought they handled all the characters pretty well. I like you said, I had a little bit of a problem with Sandman where honestly, Sandman kept saying the throwaway lines himself. There were times he would say, "I don't care." Like, which is fine. Didn't bother me.
Technically, he didn't do much in the final fight. He was just kind of there and chilling. So I think that's the thing is he wasn't actually bought into fighting, but he did want to stay, which makes no sense. If he was trying to get back to his daughter, he'd want to go back to his dimension or whatever. And also, he didn't die in Spider-Man 3. He just exited the film. So. His inclusion was odd, and I also kind of get that they were doing a soft Sinister Six, so Sandman kind of had to be there or should have been there. It's fine. It's also an excuse to show off some like computer graphics, but people's motivations got a little muddied in there.
Let me ask you this, because this is just a plot point, and maybe the chat can help me too. So let's see here. So when Willem Dafoe, or I guess Green Goblin, and when Doc Ock showed up in the Tom Holland universe, they had just died, right?
Or they were about to, I think.
They had
because they all had a conversation where they were like fighting Spider-Man, and then all of a sudden they appeared there. So I think they were just it was like their last second of being alive or whatever. And so the idea was the second you send them back, they were just going to die immediately.
Because I was like, so did they cure them and then they go and die? Is that what happened? Yeah,
that's a good point. I didn't think about that because they do go back.
I was so confused. I was so confused by this. I was like, why are they curing these people for them to get teleported to a dimension where they die? And I guess that is a nice thing to do, but also doesn't make any sense. Why not just kill them here?
When they go back to their reality, they're like, whoa. I'm good now. I'm good.
I'm good. I know. I've been cured.
But the way that they all died in the respective films, that doesn't really play out because like Doc Ock went down because he chose to. He was like, oh my God, what have I become? I need to let go of my dream and do what's best for everybody by letting go and sacrificing and stuff. Oh, they're now in branched realities. Awesome.
Oh, okay. So that's multiverse stuff. Got it. So it creates new timelines. Okay. All right. Well, that's better. At least they don't go and die. I did watch Loki. But it wasn't immediately clear. If they're variants, then I'm fine with that. But it wasn't, like I said, that was not immediately clear, having watched this film twice. So that's cool. And I think I asked Autumn about it I think she said kind of the same thing. She's like, there's one line where they say, well, when you go back, it'll be a different universe or whatever. I was like, okay, that's fine.
So, I mean, this is a step too far, but does that mean that Harry Osborn is still crazy in Spider-Man? No. Wait, because he would go back to Spider-Man 1, which means Norman Osborn would be sane again.
And I guess he wouldn't mess up James Franco's character. if he's fine, right?
I don't remember a lot of the moment-to-moment plot details from Spider-Man 3. Did Harry Osborn inject himself with the Goblin serum?
A great question.
When he got his sweet hoverboard.
I don't either. I have chosen to not. Yeah, I've chosen to not remember. He did. Okay,
remember my chat is jet-powered hoverboard.
My chat. Oh yes, I remember that.
Oh, it was a snowboard. That's right, man. That was sick.
My chat is saying yes, he did inject himself with the serum.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe now that Norman is alive and not crazy, that won't happen.
Correct. That should help.
Cool.
That should help that branched reality that he goes back to.
And now Spider-Man will have a nice father figure. I thought that was really cute, by the way. The scene where like Norman Osborn and Peter are working together, and Norman like starts instinctively kind of fathering him again and taking and like joking, and you know, it's clear that they had chemistry from those few lines. Yeah. I thought that was really nice.
Yeah. I mean, see, like people are saying, well, it's different timelines. Yeah, right. I know. I guess we just don't know yet. We truly do not. We do not know.
Raimi back. Get him back.
Well, I'm a
Spider-Man 4.
Lawrence, I'm gonna blow your mind. You know that he is finishing up the direction of Doctor Strange 2, right?
Oh, that's right. He is doing that movie. Oh boy.
Yeah, because Scott Derrickson left Doctor Strange, so now Sam Raimi's finishing it.
Fucking weird, man.
So
I just got to wait a couple decades. You can launch a turd of a movie and just wait a little bit. Give it some
time. Yeah. So that was again I'm not gonna. I don't. Crack Monkey keeps yelling about Matt Pat's video. That's great. Like I don't want to watch. I don't want to watch a 25-minute video analyzing what happens. I was just curious because. And that's the nice thing about Marvel, which may not be the case anymore, is that as we get into the multiverse stuff, it might get a little too complicated, and then I won't immediately know what's going on. Because generally in the MCU, I kind of have an idea. Like even with the time travel stuff in Endgame, it's like, well, you're along for the ride. It's like whatever, throw out the tiny little plot holes, and so far you'll be fine. But with this stuff, I was like, are they curing them to go back to where they die? And I think they have one line that throws it. That's like a throwaway line that says, no, they're going back to a branch reality. So,
yeah, I think they'll be fine as long as they don't have multiple timelines and multiple realities happening at the same time, which is something the comics really like to do.
Yeah,
but I think that's probably a bridge too far. I can't imagine Feige. Like Feige seems to have a really good fix on what people want to see and what's entertaining.
Yeah,
and I think that's too far down the comic book rabbit hole, even for this. Like that's something that might happen 50 years from now if Marvel movies are still going and they need to surprise people.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know the Marvel movies will still be going in 50 years, but
if they still earn money, probably.
If they still earn money, I truthfully I think that this whole thing's probably got another 5 to 6 left in it. I could be wrong, but that's the way it feels to me. I think they're oversaturate the whole deal. Even though I love them and I'll happily see the movies they're putting out, I think it's probably got another 5 to 6 years. I could be wrong, but that's just the way I think about it. Lawrence, did you cry when Toby and Andrew sat around Tom Holland and they all talked about who they lost?
Yeah, I mean, mostly because Andrew Garfield's performance, like he had the chin,
he killed it. He killed it.
Sad chin. He was great as Sad Spider-Man. Then actually, I always liked his portrayal of Spider-Man the best. Even though he was in some of the movies that were less liked, I thought he, as the way he portrayed Spider-Man, was the most charming. And yeah, I'm really glad he got another chance to kind of show people what he could do.
I mean, Andrew Garfield is established an amazing actor, and he was just in bad films. Like he was just in bad movies. He's just a terrific actor.
I saw you're absolutely right. He's a phenomenal talent. I saw him in there was a movie that was essentially like a biopic of the screen. I'm dropping the word. The person who made Rent.
Oh yeah. It's Tick Tick Boom, I think it is.
Yes. And he was incredible in that. So yeah, he's great. And it's unfortunate that he was in those movies that people really didn't like. But I thought he did a phenomenal job. I really, really liked the you got a mix basically. You kind of got all or three main representations of Spider-Man in one movie, which was really fun. Got the like kind of sad down and out Spider-Man, the really young, naive, and way too energetic Spider-Man, and then the kind of mid-30s, super mellowed out, much wiser Spider-Man with like back problems. I thought that was really, really cool.
That's the I don't know if they took this page from it, but Spider-Verse was that when they brought in what's his name, Jake, the guy that does the voice for Peter Parker in Spider-Verse.
Yeah,
he's a New Girl. I was forgetting his name, Jake something. But regardless, that's what it was in Spider-Verse. He was like this kind of old, sort of fat Jake Johnson. Sort of fat, like he was having back issues and stuff like that, and it was great. It really was nice. It was nice to have like a veteran Spider-Man train a younger Spider-Man. So it was the same basic theme in this, but it was Tobey. I'll make no bones about it. I can't stand those Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films.
Even two? You don't like two?
No, two is good. Two I enjoyed. And I went and saw them and like was like first in line for every single one of them. Spider-Man 1, I said for years was a bad film. And people were like, this is great. And I was like, what the fuck movie were they watching? And then Spider-Man 2 absolutely was a good movie. I enjoyed that. I felt like that was maybe held up by Alfred Molina, possibly.
Yeah. I've never I've always felt Tobey was a little wooden. Which is weird because Sam Raimi is like all the sensibility Raimi has is super, super goofy. And Molina has the perfect mustache twirl for 2. Yeah. And I mean, God, fucking Willem Dafoe is just insanely so great being
He's
crazy.
So good. And it's like the vehicles that they were in, it just wasn't exactly what it should have been. And watching Willem Dafoe and watching Andrew Garfield and watching Tobey Maguire in a Kevin Feige produced MCU film, where now it's funny, we all watch these films and then everybody leaves and goes, oh, I want to see Andrew Garfield in a Spider-Man 3. It's like, no, you don't. You want to see Andrew Garfield in another MCU film, and that's okay.
Yeah,
that's all right. But like we want Kevin Feige to produce, and we want a director that they picked. They want all the other shit. You don't want an amazing Spider-Man 3 directed by who? I don't even know who directed the first 2.
Mark Webb.
Was it Mark Webb?
His name was, because everyone's like, oh, somebody with the name Webb is directing Spider-Man.
Yeah, this is and I love this. Is my favorite thing I see a lot on. Sam Raimi had no creative control over Spider-Man 3. I've seen this so many times. People apologize. I really hope it one day that somebody apologizes for when I make bad content. I really do. I hope
some people do, right? I've seen some subreddit posts that are make up a narrative to explain a couple things.
I have, that's pretty rare. I see that.
It's rare.
I would love to see it.
I guess what's extra weird to me is have people not seen Sam Raimi's other movies?
I mean, they're all like that.
Yeah, they're largely. 2 is a wild exception in that it's very watchable. It has heart and soul and tells a meaningful story. 1 and 3 are much more Raimi style. So I kind of came to those movies expecting them to be cheesy and weird. And by and large, they didn't disappoint. I mean, Bruce, we can thank Sam Raimi for the shot of Willem Dafoe just jamming his hands into like a sweet potato casserole. Where else are you going to see that?
I mean, you're right. Nowhere else but in a Sam Raimi film.
He did it. He did it.
And Norca said, go read Sam Raimi's tweets. You're spelling Sam Raimi wrong, first of all. Second of all, I mean, it's one of those things where like, and this is something that I've learned over time, is just like, you just got to sort of accept it and be like, by the way, Sam Raimi I'd be very surprised if Sam Raimi had the least amount of creative control with Spider-Man 3 because Spider-Man 1 and 2 were huge billion-dollar films that made a fuck ton of money. So if anyone had any leverage, it'd probably be Sam Raimi for Spider-Man 3. I would be very surprised if that was the one movie they had decided, no, you know what? We're going to take it away from Sam Raimi. It's like, what?
I mean, I think people mostly lay it at the feet of like, I guess it was Sony's insistence that there be 3 villains, that they have Venom in there.
They always say Avi Arad is the problem. They always say Avi Arad was the one that wanted Venom in it. I've seen that.
Do you think Avi Arad, though, like do you think Avi Arad was responsible for the like dance sequence in Spider-Man 3? You think Sony came in there and was like, we need a hot jazz number where emo Toby like does a whole song and dance and then elbows Mary Jane to the ground? That's what we need in this film. I don't know. I think that was a Sam Raimi decision. He can own that one. Which I still laugh at it. He did like a hip thrust that blew a girl's hair back. That's a great shot too.
Yeah. Avi Arad, right. And by the way, just so you guys know, at the end of No Way Home, there is a very clearly delineated line in the credits that says, "Thank you so much to Avi Arad for believing in this vision." Blah blah blah. A bunch of fuck. They're all sucking his dick. So again, for me, I hope I make a really bad multi-million-dollar film and then a bunch of people apologize for me. That would be great.
What do you think Avi Arad did to get in the credits like that? Because that feels so much like he had to like cry and scream and send email. Like there's no way anyone involved with No Way Home on their own volition was like, you know what? We should really just reserve some space in the credits for Avi Arad. We should do that. That would be nice to do. Maybe they did, but that seems really unlikely.
People are saying Avi Arad wrote it himself, guys.
What, his own credit? Of course he did.
Yeah, he did? Really? You think he put it in there?
I'm sure he insisted that he be credited in the credits.
You think he said, write this line saying that you all thank me?
Isn't that typically how that's done? Maybe I'm being too cynical.
I would be I would love to see the tweets from people that worked on the film, like, you know, whatever, the editor, being like, I got an email from Avi Arad that says, thank myself from you. That would be hilarious. Regardless, again, I think that there are a lot of people at fault for a good and for a bad movie. It's not just Avi Arad, or it's not just Sam Raimi. I think it's everybody.
Yeah.
So that's I you know, like I said, let's see Josh Trank talking about Fantastic Four and how he had been like Josh Trank. Was pretty. Did you ever see Fantastic Four, the one that bombed recently, like the last few years? It's not very good, obviously, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, this is one of the worst movies ever made," et cetera, et cetera.
Jesus. Oh, maybe I should watch it then. I do like bad movies.
It's really boring, Lawrence. It's not even bad for bad sake. It's just like boring. It's
like slow.
Yeah, it's just boring. And Josh Trank was sort of the same way. Like people were asking him about it, and he was just sort of like, kind of like deep sigh and tweeting about, you know, like he's like, yeah, I wish it were better. And I thought that was kind of cool of him to not be like throwing everybody else under the bus.
Yeah.
To be like, well, it's the fucking producer's fault. You know, like
there's this tendency, and I get it, but there's this tendency when something comes out less than ideal to like believe that there was a good version that would have existed but for all these other problems.
Right.
And I feel like it was most strongly felt with Justice League, which I have to admit, I got a little crow. I actually really did like Zack Snyder's Justice League. But
it was certainly better than the original Justice League.
Yeah, it was a lot better.
Yeah.
But that's also I also just can't stand Joss Whedon. And I never have. When something comes out less than ideal, it's never that like everyone tried their best and it just didn't work out. It's that there's a very simple and easy narrative that points to one or two villains that is the reason everything went wrong.
Yep.
So it's just a human thing people like to do.
Yeah. So like that's, you know, so like when it's just interesting that people are apologizing for that. Regardless, to me these MCU movies are masterclasses in producing in film. Like this is how you do what you do. This is how you continue a $1 billion franchise. And I love watching people at the height of their skill level making the best shit they can. And like I just recently, I don't think you saw it, Lawrence, but did you see Eternals?
No. All the buzz about it indicated that it wasn't I'll watch it at some point when I'm like high as shit and it's late at night and there's
Eternals
nothing else to watch.
It's not good. It's not good.
Yeah.
But it's also not terrible. See, I enjoyed Eternals, but the first half of that movie is fucking boring. And to me, that was the first time I watched a movie that was in the MCU that was kind of like, damn. Like, well, that and Thor 2. Both movies I was kind of like, these are kind of boring. Like they weren't really risking anything. it was a tough. Eternals is a tough movie to make, and also it's directed by an amazing director, Chloe Zhao. So, it's watching like No Way Home, watching Shang-Chi, watching these films that clearly there are so many people that really, really care about what they're making. It's just so much fun. Like, man, I just love seeing people be the best they could possibly be, and that's what I think that these are. So I don't know. I'm not sure if you feel that way about the MCU, but I do. So,
on a technical level, that makes sense to me. I guess what leaves me underwhelmed about the MCU is that it's people putting together the best product they can, but it's a product. I don't think that any of the movies that any of the people made expressed something that was like near and dear to them, unless maybe they got somebody on the project that was just a genuine fan of the product or the character or whatever. But even then, it's still a product that comes out of being a fan of another product, which is a superhero. So I don't get a lot of genuine human expression out of those movies, but you don't really go to them for that. You go to them for like very, very crowd pleasing sentiments and big muscle fights.
That's really interesting that you said that, because I get that feeling that what you're describing. I get that feeling of that people really care about what they're making, and they care how these scenes play out, and they care about the characters. I don't know. That's interesting that you say that. I love superhero films. I always have. I'm sure I always will. And these, to me, just feel like they are made with this really positive lens around what a hero should be. And they're not trying to be, they're not trying to be dark and gritty. They're not trying to. There's not usually a gray area. There usually is, but like you said, Lawrence, they kind of wrap it up within the film. Yeah. If there's a gray area, they really try and just wrap it up, and I like that. I think that's nice because there's a lot of content out there that isn't like that. That is trying to be very pessimistic and trying to be and trying to really factor in reality. I'm not there to see reality.
I see what you mean. Yeah,
I'm there to see the best of people. And so that's why I kind of like these films. But also, yeah, like the special effects are just second to none. There's you always see the huge block of visual effects artists in the credits of these films, and I'm just like, I bow down to you people, because they are putting in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on tiny little visual effects that we'll probably never even notice, but it makes up the larger picture. And there's a reason that we love the mirror dimension, or there's a reason that we love the way Spider-Man moves and stuff like that. It's because these people are they care about that shit. So
I mean, in that regard, yeah, the action in No Way Home was really, really good.
Oh, that's great.
One of the issues I have with a lot of Spider-Man movies is he doesn't really fight like Spider-Man some of the time.
Yeah.
But in No Way Home, especially when he was encountering Doc Ock, he was like webbing to all sorts of stuff and flipping, and that was one of the things that made the action sequences in Spider-Man, the Raimi Spider-Man 2, so good.
Yeah.
In one, he would like flip around sometimes, and then they go into close shots of two people standing on their feet punching at each other. And it was just like, all right, okay. But in 2, when he was fighting Ock on the train, like Ock would pull him and he would web to something to keep himself anchored. Like there was a lot of good secondary action and a lot of usage of Spider-Man specific abilities. And there was a lot of that in No Way Home as well, which incidentally, I thought the train like passing under when the car was dangling was a fun little reference.
Yeah. Yeah.
It also just filled out the scene, but I was like, oh, they're referencing Spider-Man 2 because he's fighting Dr. Octopus. I thought that was fun. There was a fair amount of that, but
yeah, it's just
there was another night fight. It's always got to be night fights with like in the woods with Electro.
Well, and also that was all right. The fight at the end of the movies during the night as well.
That's true. Yeah, but
yeah, that must be to cover like whatever CG they can get around. But I mean, yeah, these movies have budgets, but also if they need an extra 10 million, I think they probably got it. Somebody's if Kevin Feige's like, hey, we need an extra 10 million for special effects on Spider-Man No Way Home, they're gonna be like, okay. Like they're not gonna be like, no, can't have that money because we know everyone knows he's gonna make $1 billion. So they've got all the resources at their disposal. So it's great. It's great. It's fun to watch because these are masters at work. putting out master classes in big budget pop culture films. And I don't think that anybody goes to these because they think they're going to be the next fucking Dune or what. This is
well, even Dune was basically a pop culture movie.
It was. You're right.
There wasn't a whole lot that was really challenging in there. I mean, there was the one tiny line when Paul was getting a shitload of visions about how there would be I'm sorry, spoilers. How there'd be wars waged in his name, which is kind of neat, kind of a neat idea. The fact that you can be undergoing your weird hero journey, but other people will use it for whatever purposes they want, and you won't even be a factor in it at that point. Oh yeah, there was some allusion to like greater meaning in that movie, but mostly the first movie was just go find you an exotic desert broad.
Right, but with beautiful cinematography and like sort of with the same indie lens that like Blade Runner 2049 and stuff. By the way, which I love. I'm not saying
shots.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I don't love it. It's just more. It's just a different film. You get different feelings from it. It's made to look like art, whereas this feels more like you said, a product. And that said,
I honestly don't even think that they're. To me, they don't feel that different. It is just the pacing and the visual of it. But man, spiritually, I put Dune right next to No Way Home. Really.
Wow.
Because it just like I left the movie being like, okay, that was fun.
Yeah.
But there's not really a whole lot to think about. It didn't really give me like any new perspectives on life, which I guess that's a lot to think. That's a lot to ask of a movie. But
it is. You're right, Lawrence. Because I mean, no, it totally is. The more that I watch movies, the more I'm surprised if I walk out thinking about my morals or thinking about my convictions. And I think that's actually pretty rare. I don't think you get films like that very often. So that's why I think it is a lot to ask of a movie. There aren't many movies that I'm like that really resonate with me and will stick with me for years and years and years. I don't think that No Way Home is like that for me. I really did enjoy it, and I had absolutely emotional responses to seeing Toby, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland talk about grief. That to me, and I've done a lot of therapy over the years, and that to me was such a therapeutic scene. And I'm not saying it was therapy for the viewer; it was therapy for those characters. And it was interesting to watch them all acknowledge each other's grief and acknowledge each other's loss, but also not step on each other and be like, because Tom Holland was like, I want to go fucking kill Green Goblin. And none of them, they didn't step in and go, whoa, that's bad. You shouldn't do that. They instead listened to him, heard him out, and knew how he was feeling. And it was, and I was thinking to myself, I was like, yeah, this is what it would be like if you were empathetic to yourself. And I was like, well, this is a really good lesson for other people to be empathetic with your friends or your family. If they were standing around saying these things and you could all sort of you had a similar experience, but it wasn't you, would you be empathetic to them? Yeah. And I was like, man, this is really great. This is a great scene. So I that was another thing that I took from that scene, was that it felt like therapy. It felt like sitting down and talking to a therapist, which in reality sometimes is talking to yourself. It's voicing the things that you are scared of, voicing your anger, voicing your wants and needs. And that was cool. I thought that was written really well, and also, by the way, acted perfectly by all three of them. So that was great. I love that. I loved it twice. I saw it twice. So,
yeah. You're absolutely right. And I think kind of what you were saying about how the movie was sort of making a much more explicit point in how it dealt with villains. I think having heroes, express grief and loss and empathetically listen to each other was another like sort of sign of the times. In the past, heroic men, they may have felt loss, but they dealt with it stoically, and it was always like, the real heroes are the ones that can still go kill the bad guy even though they're hurt, or they use that grief to fuel their victory, basically.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. The thing that keeps sticking in my mind, though, is that the movie ultimately said Peter Parker's not allowed that, though. He's not allowed to talk to anybody about it. The only person he can actually confide in is a mirror dimension of himself, and he never gets that again. They've all gone back home, and now he's left with his shitty apartment, and that's it. He's just got those four walls to kind of keep him safe. I mean, I did like that the movie also referenced that Spider-Men often have a place that they have to go to sort of process things or talk, because they don't have people. So, Spider-Man would talk to a gargoyle to get his feelings out. And that's not the most healthy way to deal with it, but
it's true.
That was, those scenes were really good. Probably my favorite in the movie, actually.
Me too. It was funny too. Autumn's not super attached to Spider-Man in any way, shape, or form. She's also not really. I don't think she's seen a few. She's seen the Tobey Maguire ones, but not the Andrew Garfield ones. And just as they are all going to meet Tom Holland as he's on top of the building, upset about Aunt May, Autumn left to go to the bathroom, and I was like,
no.
I was like, and I was trying to stop her, and I couldn't, because I was like, she probably's got to go to the bathroom. I don't want to stop her. So she went to the bathroom. She comes back, and the scene's over, and then later on, she was like, hey, why? And I was like, oh no. I was like, you missed literally the crux of the entire film. Like, I was like, that's what the entire film centers around, is that scene where they all talk about what they've lost and why they fight. So it was fun. I just thought that was a funny thing. I still enjoyed it, but she wasn't like, super attached to it like you or I was. So, because I like hearing people's takes on Marvel movies when they don't have attachments to the characters, when they're just going for a ride. And she was like, oh, it's cool. It was cool. So, and somebody else asked, what about the scene where Andrew Garfield catches MJ?
Oh yeah. Well, that was interesting, I guess. Because he did kind of have the chance to go back and sort of get that weird amount of closure. I don't know. They put the shot of MJ falling in the trailer, and I was like, I'm doing this again.
I mean, like, and they've got an excuse because it's a different universe, so like maybe that's why MJ falls off, because clearly MJ's always in danger here in whatever universe you're in. But again, Andrew Garfield really makes that scene for me, at least, where he catches her and he's sitting there already crying when he lets go of MJ.
I guess there was a really interesting thing that they alluded to and then sort of paid off, where they basically asked, like, you sure MJ's into you, or does she like Spider-Man? And I thought they were going down a different road, because Mary Jane seemed totally into like all the danger and Spider-Man shit, but then they just kind of, but as far as I could tell, sort of just walked away from it. I mean, she had her like couple of lines when they were in the Wizard Dungeon, basically saying she was bought in. And I thought, like, okay, now our like Tom Holland is going to be worried, right, that she's not actually into you. She just likes the adventure and the danger. But they just kind of didn't really follow that up.
Yeah, I guess they didn't. I didn't. I kind of, like, I know what you're saying. I caught it. I just didn't really even think any more of it. I was like, I didn't think they needed to follow up with it. But yeah, I know what you're saying. It makes sense. It
was one of the things that I was like, oh, this might be a really interesting. That's like an interesting problem to try to address.
No, yeah, I agree.
The movie's already pretty crowded, so it didn't need it.
But you're not wrong. But that's, I mean, people were asking about that scene. That scene's great. It seems like everybody really liked it. Just that we all could feel like Andrew Garfield had redeemed himself, basically. And that's actually something that we were talking about earlier, how Andrew Garfield was terrific. He absolutely, I think, outshined both Tom and Toby in the scenes that he was in. But I loved how even that part of the movie I thought was therapy for Andrew Garfield, because he kept talking about how he was like there, because like, all right, well, I'll be Peter 1, I'll be Peter 2, and Andrew Garfield was like, all right, I guess I'll be Peter 3, because he knew that even in real life, he was the least liked Spider-Man. And it's great to have those scenes where he acts that out with those guys. And then they each encourage each other, you know, like they're like, no, dude, you're great, man. Like, yeah, like that. You did such a good job. Like they were all encouraging each other. I love that. And to me, that felt almost like the actors were encouraging each other, being like, hey, Andrew, you did a great job, man. Don't worry about what people said about you.
I love that. When Toby tried to make him say he was amazing, I was like, that's fun. That's clever.
Yeah. That was great. So I liked that a lot too, just because it was clear that the writers and the producers and director were all very in on that. It wasn't even a joke anymore, because people had shit on Andrew Garfield for being in the Spider-Man film, being like, oh, these movies aren't very good, et cetera, et cetera. So he never really maybe got his fair shake, and I thought that helped. So
yeah, giving him a little more screen time too did wonders to give his character or give the loss of Gwen Stacy a little more depth, because in the movie the editing makes it seem like he gets over it pretty quick. Like there's one shot of him at her grave, and then like the seasons change, and then he fights Rhino or doesn't fight Rhino, and then the movie ends.
And the movie ends.
So I was like, gosh, he got over that pretty fast. I mean, I kind of liked in Amazing 2 how it sort of had this feeling of like, well, life goes on, even if you lose somebody, and you just have to figure out how to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
That was my takeaway, even though the movie was overstuffed and kind of like the pacing was terrible. But to have him come back and he has a little more screen time to actually express the grief that he was feeling.
Right.
Helped a lot.
Yeah. That's one thing that I'll like I'm raving about MCU, but the MCU I feel like gets it. They get that a little more than other superhero films have. They understand that these characters, when huge shit is happening to them, they have to process it a little bit. And they may not give them enough time, but at least they give them something. Versus like what you said, where it's like he goes to her funeral and then 6 months later, and then he fights the Rhino. It's
Spider-Man's back.
So
yay!
At least these movies are trying to give you a representation of a human processing something that is bad.
Well, it's funny you brought up the scene with Superman and Zod in Man of Steel, because there's no shot, there's no scene of him dealing with that or talking about it with Lois or anything.
It's true,
right? He just kills Zod, and then the movie just kind of goes on. Which, I mean, that should have been the grand test of his philosophy. It should have been like, I don't read a lot of Superman, but in the comics, he was like crazy depressed for a long time, right? After he killed Zod, because he had to violate his like one rule. Because he didn't have a choice, and it tees up a lot of really interesting moralistic discussions. But the movie, didn't do that.
Didn't,
because I don't know if Zack Snyder has the capacity to care about that. He just seems to like big muscle men punching each other, and then cool God-related imagery, which whatever.
Yeah, I guess somebody said they touched on it in Batman v Superman. Well, there's a reason why I don't care.
They touched.
It's because we want to turn this into the Zack Snyder podcast, but I'll give you a one-line review of the Zack Snyder, the Snyderverse Justice League. I can also make a pretty great movie in 4.5 hours. So, with $150 million, I could do that too. It took me 3 fucking nights to finish it, and I was like, "This is insanity!" Like, I was like, "I can't believe they did this," but it is also not bad. Anyways,
well, maybe we'll get an extended cut of Amazing Spider-Man 2. Maybe everyone having seen this movie now will be like, wow, we got to have more of this.
That's what people are saying. They're saying Andrew Garfield's going to get a Spider-Man 3. Ugh. That's what they're saying. And they don't want that. They want an MCU movie. But hey, you know what? Whatever. Go see another Spider-Man movie. I don't care. Yeah.
I feel like as long as there's money, they'll make it, right? Why not?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. It's this was, I don't know if this is going to be the highest grossing Spider-Man film with Tom Holland. It might be. It might be.
I guess I assumed because of the headlines and stuff that it already was, but could be
no,
wrong.
I just don't know offhand. I don't know if I can say that, but I think that it probably will be. Because I think Far From Home did pretty well. But I don't know how Homecoming did. I don't think Homecoming did. I think it did okay. So I'm sure they'll make another one. And what do you think about Doctor Strange? Do you think that's what is it, Mephisto, or do you think that's actually just Doctor Strange being stupid?
Oh, Evil Strange?
Yeah.
In the like post credits trailer?
Well,
or do you mean in the movie?
I just mean just in the
itself?
movie. Just in the movie. Like what? Because I mean, like Doctor Strange, he's so smart, and so why is he kind of being sort of dumb in this?
Because there has to be a storyline.
Yeah, that was
my take. Is like, it's, I don't know. Strange's presence in the film was just kind of anecdotal because you needed wizard magic to make the story go. It didn't land as hard as it should have when Strange was like suddenly really, really nice and sentimental to Spider-Man at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because he does like, you can call me Tim, or I don't know. And he's like, I'm gonna miss you, kid. And I was just are
Steven,
we really? Yeah. Are we really? Like, nothing happened though. There was no moment where like Spider-Man proved his worth, I guess, aside from being willing to accept all the sacrifice on himself.
Yeah.
Also, he was why Strange with his ability to see every dimension at all times? Why was he like, nope, can't save him. Sorry, bud.
So yeah,
we got to kill him. That's just how it goes. I'm a wizard.
I have watched What If, and I'm still asking. I've watched every single Marvel thing you can watch, and yes, I watched them and loved them and enjoyed them and etc. But that doesn't necessarily explain why Doctor Strange is he seems to be a little willy-nilly with everything that he's doing. You know, he's kind of like, just, well, fuck it. And, you know, like, and then he's like, wait a minute, change it because of MJ. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll change it. You know, like, and I was like, wow, that's not, okay. I mean, so that's why people are like, oh, he's a variant. I'm like, okay, well, I hope they do explain that later. I don't know that they will.
He was a different Strange.
Yeah.
I haven't seen What If. I haven't seen Loki, so
I've seen them all. I've watched it all, and I really do enjoy them. But again, it just seemed a little off. No, I'm not talking the Doctor Strange 2 trailer. I'm talking about like him actually casting the spell for Peter when Peter's like, "Hey, I would love it if the world could forget that I was Spider-Man." And I just thought that was like, that's odd. Because if it were Doctor Strange, I'd be like, if I was Doctor Strange, I would have been like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, you got to go figure this shit out yourself.
No, most people in chat are saying that Strange's ego has always been a character trait of his. Yeah, just just using magic to like do a favor for a kid. Yeah, that can fall into the realm of like, I'm a wizard, whatever.
You know what?
I'll just do this nice favor.
Hey, guys, I'll accept that as an answer. I'm totally fine with that. I just wanted to see if I was okay with that, or if it was just to serve the narrative. I wasn't sure. So
I see.
Yeah.
So here's my question: is like, you have your cheeky Avi Arad post credits Venom.
Oh yeah.
Right? But like, all right. So if the rules were that anyone who knows Peter Parker's Spider-Man is coming to that reality, then he wouldn't be there because he wasn't in that reality. Spider-Man's not there, right?
Wait, say that again.
So it was only the villains that knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man that were drawn to that dimension. Right?
Yes.
But Venom, Tom Hardy Venom, doesn't know that. Hasn't even run into Spider-Man yet. So why would he have been drawn to that dimension?
Okay, so I will then go back to the end of Venom 2.
Oh, I haven't seen Venom 2 yet.
Yeah, because I saw Venom 2.
Okay, is that it?
The end of Venom 2, he just sort of gets teleported. He just gets teleported into the universe. He doesn't really explain why. Yeah, and then he sees Spider-Man on TV or something, right? Is that why he sees Spider-Man on TV and then gets teleported? I truly do. I saw Venom 2 obviously only once, and obviously
Symbiote hive mind spans across universes.
There we go.
So if one Venom knows, then they all know?
So if Topher Grace's Venom new, then that means
that is it. Okay.
That
weird.
I mean, like, this is stuff, by the way, that they've not explained. So I on purpose avoid this stuff because I like to have the movies tell me. So it's interesting to hear you guys say this stuff because I don't know this. So,
but yeah, somebody also brought up that Electro didn't know, which also is true, I believe. I don't think in Amazing 2 that Electro ever, or that
I found out his secret identity.
Yeah, I don't think he ever took his mask off.
Yeah,
because I mean, even in the movie, there's dialogue where he's like, "Oh, I thought you were black." Like, if he knew who he was, he would know that. So it doesn't make sense,
right?
Anyway,
okay. Well, that's thank you for saying that to us, chat. I don't know those finer points of the comic lore on purpose because I don't want to know. But yeah, I mean, I think that he just left a piece of his suit, which will then obviously turn into another Venom. I don't think it's going to be Tom Hardy's Venom in the MCU.
No, there's a different Eddie Brock. Wait, yeah, because they haven't introduced MCU Eddie Brock, have they?
I don't think so.
Yeah, just Flash Thompson, who I think was also Venom in a particular Spider-Man line, but maybe Venom will get on Flash Thompson in this universe.
This was a really, really, really quick throwaway, but if you didn't watch Ted Lasso, you wouldn't know. The bartender in that post-credit scene with Tom Hardy, was in Ted Lasso. He's one of the soccer players in Ted Lasso, and I was like, is he gonna get the Venom? Is he gonna get the Venom suit? So I was like, oh, because I mean he's an established actor at this point, so maybe he'll get the Venom suit. I wasn't sure. I don't know.
But, interesting, I guess.
Yeah, people are saying Flash Thompson will probably get the Venom suit, which is fine.
Well, that's fine. He's a fun actor.
He is a fun actor, yeah. But I don't know if we're gonna get bad Venom or good Venom or what. We'll see.
I mean, Venom's an anti-hero. He's both, Bruce. He's
I mean, I know you're right. But the reason I scoffed is because those movies are just so terrible.
Mobius, Michael Mobius.
You mean Morbius?
Morbius, yes. That's what I meant.
Thank God it's delayed. Hopefully they delay it forever because it's going to be bad. Mean?
No, they only delay good movies, Bruce.
It's going to be bad. I'm sorry, no, it will only be bad if you didn't like Venom 1 or 2. This is what I was saying because Sony has found the formula for their Sony Marvel films, and they're trash. But if you like them, if you like Venom 1 or Venom 2 or both, then you will like Morbius because they're going to be the same thing. So if you like those films, you're going to like Morbius.
Is Mahershala Ali's Blade, is that MCU or is that Sony?
No, that's MCU. The only Sony Marvel films we're getting, apart from obviously the Spider-Man films, these are joint ventures between the two. But again, Feige clearly has creative control. Are Venom 1, Venom 2, and Morbius, and they're trying to make their own little universe because they are like purely capitalizing on the MCU.
Yeah. Which now that you've mentioned an Amazing Spider-Man 3, God, how delicious would that be if, like, because of a Marvel movie, suddenly their Spider-Man property got more life back in it.
I mean, that's what happened. Like,
yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's how they were able to make those Venom films, is because they got Tom Holland, Spider-Man in Civil War. And they made him cool again. So everyone's like, "Oh, I want more of that." And then they made Venom, and it's terrible. But again, as I more power to you if you like those films. Because they're totally dumb. They're supposed to be dumb fun. They're not meant to be part of a larger universe yet. So whatever. Yeah. Anyways, I don't know what else. Anything else? Any other thoughts you have on No Way Home?
Well, let me think.
And you don't have to. I was just wondering. We can move on to the Matrix if you want to talk about the Matrix.
Well, I always want to talk about the Matrix, but I just want to put some points on the board for Jamie Foxx. I think he's an incredible actor.
He was great.
All of his lines were incredible. I don't know. I saw No Way Home and I was like, damn, Jamie Foxx is so fucking good. And then I went home and watched Collateral because he's been great in everything I've seen him in.
No, Jamie Foxx. I mean,
yeah. There were some memes. The Something of a Scientist Myself. Jeez.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Dude, the villains in this film are just so fucking good. Like Alfred Molina is obviously a legendary actor. Willem Dafoe, a legendary actor. Jamie Foxx, legendary. Like these guys are absolutely legendary actors, and the MCU allowed them to shine. It was just so great. You're right. Jamie Foxx made me laugh every line. Like everything he said was a laugh for me.
Well, he kind of ended up being the voice of the audience sometimes, of calling attention to just how ridiculous everything was.
One of my favorite lines was, let me guess, a lizard. When he's talking about how the lizard wanted to turn everybody else into a lizard.
Oh,
Man,
yeah.
That was so funny. That was so fucking funny.
Reminds me of the panel. I thought that might have been speaking of how meme-tastic some of those conversations were, I just always think of that panel with Spider-Man and Sauron, who wants to turn the entire world into dinosaurs. It's just Spider-Man trying to be like, you could cure cancer. And then Sauron's like, I don't want to cure cancer. I want to turn everyone into dinosaurs. I don't know. It's just a super good comic panel.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. And they actually, I mean, they act that out in this movie. That's exactly what they say. Where they're like, he's a lizard and he wants to turn other people into lizards. And I remember Autumn looked over at me during the movie and was like, is that true? And I was like, yes, that's exactly the plot of Amazing Spider-Man 1. And it's just as stupid as it sounds.
Bruce, no one would ever lose arms again. We'd all grow our arms back. We'd be hyper intelligent lizard people. Yeah, you'll like it once you're on the other side.
We'd all be aggressive and look like lizards.
Yeah, the aggression's kind of the downer there. I don't know why that happened. Because the lizard's just like crawling on warm rocks and hanging out. I don't know why Kurt Connors has to go ballistic.
Oh my gosh. What a terrible, terrible movie. I had no right being as okay as it was, because it was an okay movie.
Amazing 1?
Amazing 1 was an okay film. Like I walked out of it not offended. I was like, cool, whatever.
It was just like, it was so forgettable. I don't remember most of it.
Yeah, it was super forgettable. And then Amazing Spider-Man 2, I felt so betrayed by that. I remember walking out of that movie. I went and saw it with James, actually. James and I walked out and I looked over at James. I was like, James, I'm never paying for another Spider-Man movie in this universe ever. I was like, never again, because I hated it.
Man, really? Was that bad?
I just remember being so upset. And I couldn't even tell you why now. I'd have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, people had such negative reactions to that film, and I don't quite get why. I mean, I get a lot of the things that people found distasteful, or just were like studio insertion problems of trying to force they were trying to do their cinematic universe thing. They were trying to lead up to Sinister Six.
Right.
And that was a waste of screen time for sure. But it's nothing worse that's been in any other superhero movie by my reckoning. I don't know. People had very, very strong reactions to it.
I don't remember why. I just felt like everything was sort of squandered.
There was a stupid amount of screen time dedicated to Peter's parents and stuff, which also happens in the comics, but yeah, didn't need any of that either. Like them being SHIELD agents and shit. Don't need it. Stupid.
Yeah. Those movies before MCU were trying so hard to establish the MCU, or I guess be part of it.
They were trying to skip to it. Yeah, good music though. I mean, Junkie XL's soundtrack in Amazing Spider-Man 2 is phenomenal.
Oh, is it?
Especially when he's fighting Electro at the end. Oh my god. That might be one of the better superhero fights just in general.
Okay, cool. I don't remember the music.
Yeah. Spider-Man and Electro are fighting at like a power station, and Electro zapping all these like transformers, and they light up like graphic equalizers and make these like huge synth hits every time he hits one. It's a really cool sequence.
Oh, I do remember that. I don't remember. I wasn't sure if I liked that or not. I do remember that though.
Yeah.
But I could see why you like it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm sure I was just soured on that film from the very beginning. Jamie Foxx also looks terrible in that movie. He looks they made him look like garbage.
Yeah, I liked what they did with Electro in No Way Home, where he has his stupid little lightning face, but it's just little sparkles that come off of him whenever he's casting lightning bolts and stuff.
Yeah,
I thought that was a neat touch. Also,
nice.
I feel like him plus an arc reactor should probably have been way more powerful, but he was just kind of throwing the same bolts he did in his movie.
Yeah.
And like he had a nuclear power station on his chest, right? I feel like he should have been just banana strong, but that would probably have made concluding the film difficult.
They did give a canonical reason why Fox didn't look like garbage. Like he said it. He was like, I think he says he was like able to manipulate his appearance in No Way Home, which I thought was fun. I was like, oh, at least they tried to explain why he doesn't look like shit. So it's just funny to see what writers, producers, and directors will do when given a chance to correct somebody else's work or fix. I don't want to say correct or fix, just a different interpretation.
Cure, Bruce. That's what we do here. We cure bad things.
Cure
by coming up with a better chip and a beepy device that you clamp onto your chest that sucks all your electric power away.
That's right. It takes a really long time to suck it all away, though. For some reason, we're not sure why.
Yeah, dramatic tension.
Yeah. But that was, I mean, like, this movie does that. No Way Home does that. It does fix it. It makes me care about characters that I didn't like. Like, I hated Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, and it made me care about Tobey Maguire.
Really?
Yeah. And like I said earlier in the podcast, like in our talk, I just didn't. I don't fucking care about Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. And then when he arrives, I'm like, oh my gosh, there he is, and everything he says is like super appropriate, and he's dealing with like how he's kind of dating MJ, and he's older, and like I was like, boy, I really like all this. But I hated it. I fucking hated those movies. So like it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting because I thought he was probably the weakest part of it. His performance was really totally, like flat.
Yeah,
all the dialogue he was given was super non-specific because he was like, "Yeah, I'm dating someone, but it's complicated." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's exactly what you say when you can't say anything. When it's like you can't pin anything down."
Apparently, I was gonna say apparently he was the one that asked for that. He was the one that asked for that. I'm gonna go ahead and time out G.I. Jones for saying that was a trash take. So you go ahead and take a little time there, bud. Take a little time. Not. It's fine. You can disagree, but you go easy. You go easy.
Yeah, why don't you? You got to share a take that's twice as good then to make up for it.
I don't know what that's going to be for G.I. Jones.
Well, we won't know for a while, will we?
Yeah, that's true.
It's your homework.
But yeah, I mean, like, I think you're right about Tobey Maguire being super, like, really vague, but that was on purpose. That's what he wanted.
I wonder why.
He'd asked the writers to be vague about how Spider-Man played out. I don't know. I'm not sure. But
weird. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if Andrew Garfield had as much of a say in his character. Probably not, because he seemed more of an MCU style character than Tobey Maguire. But I think you're right. I think Tobey was sort of the weakest link of this whole thing. Maybe because Tobey is over this whole thing. Maybe he was like, I'll do this, but I'm kind of over it. So
yeah, he didn't. I don't mind like characters that have been off screen for so long coming back and being that sort of, because it was sort of his performance and the writing kind of let you think whatever you wanted about his character and what was going on in his head. So I kind of liked that, given that it's been so long and people have their own impressions of that character and his portrayal of it. But I don't know. To me, it just seemed like they were intentionally leaving his character mysterious so that you would assume a lot more meaning and emotional resonance behind what he said than there actually was.
Yeah,
like I said, the one line that really hit was the one where he said he was trying to do better. That's the only one that I really took anything away from. Yeah, and him trying to coach Andrew Garfield Spider-Man back into positivity. I thought that was a really good exchange.
Yeah, no, I did too. And I thought they killed him at the end of the film when he got stabbed.
Yeah, and then it was immediately like, nope, I'm fine.
I know, which I wasn't sure if that was like some inside joke I was supposed to know about, or if it was just the writers being like, nah, we're not going to kill him. You know, like I wasn't sure. I don't know.
I think it was just that you just had to have you had to have a beat where, again, oh, Jesus, sorry. I'm dicking around with an emulator and it was suddenly crazy loud.
Oh.
I think you just had to have you had to have another beat after May got stabbed, where another person gets stabbed in the back by a villain. Like it was that repeated refrain where like you had to, the villain or the hero has to be mutilated multiple times. That's their calling. That's what they do. So I was like, gosh, we're really driving this home, aren't we? Man.
I mean, and to be fair, again, to the MCU, that's what would have happened. He was standing there dialoguing with Tom Holland. He would have gotten stabbed. Like, I'm actually surprised they didn't stab him earlier. So it was kind of an interesting thing because I was like, oh yeah, that's right, Green Goblin. Because like in most movies, they would have sat there, dialogued at each other, worked something out, and then turned around and punched the Green Goblin. But they didn't do that because he got stabbed in the back. So I was like, all right, well, that's valid. But yeah, I thought they killed him, and then I was like, oh wow, they killed him. That's cool. And then he was like, nah, I'm fine. So whatever.
Yeah, that was a little weird, but it was like, to me, that was just a writing beat. We have to have another tragic moment where you think somebody's died.
Yeah. That's what it seemed like to me. I thought it was a funny line when Tobey Maguire was like, well, I've been stabbed a bunch. It was well timed, well delivered, so it made me laugh. But yeah. I don't know. I enjoyed the film a lot. I thought it was really fun, and I'm happy. I'm happy it's making a lot of money, and I think I would very much recommend it.
Yeah, me too. It's one of those movies that will probably, like, regardless of people's investment in the character, will probably have a fun time watching. Yeah, for me, I can't turn my brain off, so I find some of the philosophical underpinnings a little troubling when it comes to how the movie tees up that heroes and good people are expected to behave. But kind of like you said, man, sometimes that's life. If you want to do good things, you really have to accept that sometimes you're going to get stabbed in the back for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens a lot to a lot of heroes in these movies, is they go in with the best of intentions and then they get fucked. And then they have to go and then it's like, and honestly, it's like they have to, they are given another chance to decide. And that's what happens in Dark Knight Rises. Batman gets a shit beat out of him. And it's because he didn't, decisively do what he should have done, right? But that's what you're doing. You're giving the bad guy a chance because you're a good guy. Otherwise, you just go in there and shoot him in the head and it'd be over with. But that's not what heroes do. So that's what this feels like to me. Is just like, well, he gets another chance, even though he fucked everything up. And that's kind of what happens in a lot of hero movies.
Was that that was the takeaway from Dark Knight Rises?
Well, I was likening it to that because that's what happens. Like he's arrogant. In Dark Knight Rises is totally different. He's arrogant and he goes in and he's like, oh, I can easily take this, and then gets his ass kicked. But he doesn't die.
But it was because he was afraid of dying, right? That's what he had to learn by crawling out of the pit. He had to abandon his attachment to his own life so that he could fight suicidally. That's kind of what. Well, sorry, this is a huge aside, but that was what I thought Dark Knight Rises was.
Oh no. At the end of the movie, no. The guy in the pit specifically says the fear is what makes him survive.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, he had to want to live.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I forgot about that. I got it backwards.
Yeah. No. He says like, no. That's the reason why he made the jump. It's because he was afraid of dying. Gotcha. And then Batman wasn't like Batman at the beginning of Dark Knight Rises had just given up entirely. He was just like, fuck it. I don't care anymore. Like, I'm good at my job, but I don't care. I also don't give a shit if I have to sacrifice myself for Gotham. And that was the wrong attitude to have. Whatever, this is a Dark Knight Rises podcast.
Gotcha.
Well, truthfully, I don't could be talking out of my ass. I haven't seen the movie in years. So, but anyways, yeah, cool. Do you want to talk about The Matrix?
Always.
Well, let's do it.
Always and forever.